Picture a girl living at the finest boarding school in London, dressed in the loveliest clothes, admired and envied by every other student. Then, in a single day, she loses everything. Her father has died, the family fortune has vanished, and no one calls her a princess anymore. The headmistress moves her, under the very same roof, into a freezing attic, now as a servant rather than a pupil. Does the girl give up? No. She makes herself a private promise. Whatever happens, she tells herself, I will remain a princess inside. Poverty, hunger, and cold cannot break that belief. Written at the end of the 19th century, this story still wins over the hearts of millions of children and adults today. The book is called A Little Princess. So what does Sara Crewe's story tell us about what real nobility actually is? Let's dive in. Let's meet the author. Frances Hodgson Burnett was born in 1849 in Manchester, England. She lost her father while still a child, and the family's small manufacturing business gradually collapsed. In her mid-teens, the family emigrated to the United States, hoping for a better life, settling in Knoxville, Tennessee. But poverty followed them across the ocean. Young Frances began writing to help support her family, sending short stories off to magazines, and over time she became the family's most important source of income. In the years that followed, this same young woman grew into one of the highest-earning and most widely read authors of her era. Her 1886 novel, Little Lord Fauntleroy, made her internationally famous. The velvet suit worn by its small hero even started a fashion craze on both sides of the Atlantic, with mothers dressing their sons to match. Burnett quickly became one of the most recognized and best-paid writers of her time. But the roots of A Little Princess reach back further than that fame. In 1888, Burnett published a shorter piece called Sara Crewe, set at Miss Minchin's school, though far shorter than the novel we know today. The story was loved so widely that it was first adapted into a stage play, and Burnett later expanded it into the full novel in front of you, published in 1905 as A Little Princess. Burnett's own life carried its own sorrow. In 1890, she lost her 16-year-old son, Lionel, to tuberculosis, a loss that left a lasting mark on her. Burnett spent much of her life moving back and forth between England and America, keeping homes in both countries. So what actually happens in the book? Sara Crewe is the daughter of a wealthy English officer born in India. Her father, Captain Crewe, sends her to be educated at Miss Minchin's exclusive boarding school in London. Between her family's wealth and her own vivid imagination, Sara becomes the school's favorite pupil. She wears the finest clothes, has a room and dolls of her own, and even enchants her classmates by telling them stories. Among her schoolmates, the slow but loyal Ermengarde and the motherless little Lottie become Sara's closest friends, and Sara comforts Lottie almost like a mother would. The jealous classmate Lavinia mockingly calls her a princess, a taunt that, over time, turns into a title everyone genuinely believes. But Sara's defining trait is not pride, it is generosity. Even in her days of wealth, she treats the servant girls, the poor beggars, and her excluded schoolmates with kindness. Then disaster strikes. Talked into it by a friend, Captain Crewe invests his fortune in diamond mines. The investment collapses, and Captain Crewe, far from his daughter, dies of grief and illness. Miss Minchin, now seeing the penniless Sara as nothing but a burden, moves her into the school's cold attic. Sara now wears ragged clothes instead of fine ones, goes hungry, and is put to hard work alongside the other servants. But Sara never loses the nobility inside her. She keeps repeating a sentence to herself. Whatever happens, she says, I am a princess inside. Holding on to that belief, she keeps her kindness, her imagination, and her generosity intact, even in her hardest moments. She forms a deep friendship with the young servant girl Becky, sharing even her own meager food with her. Even in her hungriest, coldest moments, Sara plays a private game with herself, imagining she is a prisoner in the Bastille, or an exiled princess from a fairy tale, calling it simply supposing. That small act of imagination is the secret to how she endures the cruelty of the real world. One night, returning cold and hungry to her attic, she finds a warm fire, a delicious meal, and warm blankets waiting in her room. She takes it for magic, but it is in fact secretly arranged across the rooftops by her mysterious next-door neighbor, the Indian gentleman, through his loyal servant Ram Das. This connection had actually begun earlier when a pet monkey escaped from Ram Das's household and took shelter at Sara's attic window. That neighbor, it turns out, is Mr. Carrisford, Captain Crewe's former business partner, and we learn that the diamond mine investment had in fact succeeded, but that for years he had been searching, without knowing where to find her, for the lost daughter of his deceased friend. Carrisford has no idea that the very girl he is searching for lives right next door. In the end, a chance discovery reveals Sara's identity, and Carrisford finds both his fortune and a family. Sara becomes wealthy again, but she now sees wealth through different eyes. She never forgets the kindness she learned during her days of poverty, and in her new life, she returns the same generosity that was once shown to her. So why is this book still read today? Because A Little Princess argues that character, not money, is what determines true nobility. Sara's real strength lies not in her dresses or her fortune, but in her ability to remain kind to others, even on her worst days. For more than a century, that idea has taught children that outer circumstances should never force them to compromise their own values. The book also celebrates the power of imagination. Even in the cruelest conditions, Sara invents stories that keep both herself and the people around her going. That makes it more than a fairy tale about fortune regained. It is also a story about how imagination and kindness can become a genuine strategy for survival. Under Burnett's pen, even London's coldest attics take on a kind of magic, because the story shows us that real wealth is sometimes found in sharing a single piece of bread. Now, let's look behind the curtain for a moment. The book's full original title was actually A Little Princess, being the whole story of Sara Crewe now told for the first time, since Burnett wanted to remind her readers directly that she was completing and expanding her earlier short story. The book has never gone out of print since its publication, and has been adapted for the stage, film, and television many times over. Among the best-known adaptations is the 1939 film starring the child star Shirley Temple, though that version departs from the original plot at several points in order to deliver a tidier, happy ending. While writing the book, Burnett drew directly on her own childhood experience of poverty and her early struggle to support her family through writing, which is why Sara's battle with poverty carries traces not only of imagination, but of the author's own life. Burnett spent a great deal of time in the garden of Maytham Hall, a house she rented for a period in England, and that experience later inspired her most famous novel, The Secret Garden. In that light, Burnett's two most beloved heroines, Sara Crewe and The Secret Garden's Mary Lennox, turn out to be close relatives, both children confronting loss, loneliness, and the healing power of imagination. We have covered A Little Princess, but Sara's stories from the attic are never fully understood while they stay trapped between the pages. If you would like to listen to the complete book as an audiobook, you will find the link in the description. You can also find Burnett's other books on this channel. Subscribe for more videos in this series. Until the next one, remember what Sara told herself. Whatever happens, I am a princess inside.